Okay, so good morning, and this is the third of three videos on the heart and blood vessels. And so today, in this video, we are going to talk a little bit about some of the special areas of the circulatory system. We're going to begin with what's called the coronary circulation. And uh, obviously you're aware that the heart is a muscle, all right? And just like every other muscle in the body, it requires blood flow. But through the heart itself, the blood is through the chambers of the heart, through the atria and the ventricles and that sort of thing. The blood is moving far too fast for efficient diffusion to occur. And so those cardiac muscle cells require a great deal of oxygen. They have to get rid of their carbon dioxide. They have to take in nutrients and wastes, just like any other cell in the body. And so one of the very first set of branches off of the aorta are what's called the coronary arteries. All right, these are very small arteries, but their function is to supply the heart with fresh oxygenated blood and nutrients, of course, and to take away the metabolic wastes that are produced by cardiac muscle. And so these are separate from the systemic circulation and obviously separate from the pulmonary circulation. All right, so the first couple of branches off of the aorta are very small coronary arteries that supply the heart. Now, these are very important arteries health-wise, because if these arteries become blocked for any reason, that this is what leads to a heart attack. All right, myocardial infarctions, which is the fancy word for heart attack, are caused by blockages in these arteries. Now, in the last video, I mentioned the hepatic portal system. And this is a system that is designed to bring blood from the small intestine, the digestive tract, which has a great deal of amino acids and sugars in it. And it carries that blood directly from the small intestine to the liver. The liver takes the blood. It also synthesizes blood proteins, and it stores glucose in terms of a polysaccharide, which is called glycogen. The liver also purifies blood that comes from the digestive tract. So, for example, it removes alcohol and other drugs from the system and either stores them or tries to send them to the urinary system. All right. And then from the liver, the blood will eventually return to the heart through the inferior vena cava. All right, but the interesting thing about the hepatic system, and this word portal is really the key, is that it starts in a system of capillaries in the digestive tract and ends in a system of capillaries in the liver without having a pump in between. This is the only place in the human body where this actually occurs, and that's true for most animals. Well, for most vertebrate animals, I should say. And so no pump, all right? Starts in capillaries, ends in capillaries with no pump in between. Okay. And that's what the word portal means. Now, why should, in every system, in every chapter that we talk about a specific system, I'm going to mention certain things that can go wrong with that particular system. And so in this case, we're going to talk about cardiovascular disease, or CVD. All right. Why do we care about this? Well, first of all, in the Western world, Europe and the United States and North America, cardiovascular disease is the most common cause of death. All right. And there are several things that can go wrong here. Disorders of the blood vessels are listed below. Arteriosclerosis and atherosclerosis are shrinking of the arteries and hardening of the arteries. So the arteries become blocked and they become less flexible than they were. And what this does is it generally leads to higher blood pressure, all right, which is also known as hypertension. Now, if the blockages become too much, this can lead to a heart attack or a stroke. All right. If the blockages occur in the coronary arteries, obviously that leads to a heart attack. If the blockages occur in arteries in the brain, that leads to a stroke. Although that's not the only way that a stroke can occur. A stroke can also be caused by what we call an aneurysm, which is a bursting of the blood vessel in the brain. And you can have aneurysms, by the way, in any blood vessel, but when it occurs in the brain, that's a stroke. Okay. Now, how do we treat these kinds of things? Well, any blockage in an artery that's caused by a blood clot can be not cured, but helped by a drug called TPA. Now, the TPA stands for tissue plasminogen activator, which is an enzyme, actually, that dissolves blood clots. And it's produced naturally in the body to prevent blood clots. But for a patient who is undergoing or having a heart attack or having a stroke that's caused by a blood clot, this can be administered, a synthetic form of the drug can be administered to the patient to help dissolve that clot quickly. Treating or clogged arteries can be treated in a number of different ways. We can have bypass surgery, and typically what they do is they take a vein from another part of the body, usually the leg, and bypass the clogged artery. So if you've got an artery here and it's got a clog in it, all right, and the blood flow is constricted, what you can do is you can literally attach another blood vessel here surgically so that the blood can actually go around the clog. Okay, that's a bypass surgery. You can also insert what's called a stent, which is a little cylinder made of metal, into the clogged artery, and literally they expand it inside the artery to widen it out, and that increases the blood flow. This same type of procedure can be done with a balloon, and we call that angioplasty, where the balloon is literally inserted into the clogged area and then inflated, which opens up the blood vessel. And oftentimes nowadays, stents and angioplasty are used simultaneously. So they'll go in, they'll open up the clog with the balloon and place a stent in there so that the blood continues to flow evenly and efficiently. Now, if there are disorders within the heart itself, this can obviously lead to multiple problems. You need blood to pump through your body. And so if your heart's not functioning at full capacity, or if it's not functioning at all, then this is referred to as heart failure. And so there are multiple treatments for heart failure. There is what we call a left ventricular assist device, or an LVAD. This is sometimes referred to as a pacemaker. And what this does is it stimulates the left ventricle of the heart to beat at a regular pace, typically 70 beats per minute. And so this works by essentially having a battery pack and a set of electrodes that run. You don't see the natural heart here in this picture, but their electrical stimulus to the left ventricle causes it to beat at a regular interval, and that helps, obviously, the blood flow. If the heart itself is too damaged to work on its own, it can be replaced either with a natural heart from a donor. Obviously, the donor has already been deceased, or possibly from an animal. Oftentimes, they'll use pig hearts. All right. And sometimes there are mechanical hearts that can be plugged into the chest. And there's a picture of an artificial heart on the right side of the screen. And these simply push blood through the same way that a natural heart would do so. The only difference is that these are generally more like pool pumps, right? The water filtering, running through the filter of a pool, as opposed to a beating pump. And so the interesting thing about artificial hearts is that the folks who have them actually no longer have a pulse, all right, which is kind of a weird scenario, all right? But it beats the alternative. Now, how do you prevent your heart from becoming damaged and your blood vessels from becoming damaged? Don't smoke, all right? That's one of the leading causes of heart disease in the United States. Don't abuse drugs, because certain drugs can affect your heart and blood vessels in a variety of different ways. Keep your weight down. This decreases your chance of high blood pressure as well as type 2 diabetes. Eat a healthy diet, lots of salads and that sort of thing, low in saturated fats, low in trans fats, and low in cholesterol. Know your blood cholesterol level. At your age, you probably have not had a cholesterol test, although you may have. But high cholesterol, especially in middle-aged to older people, can be a damaging thing. And, keep up your exercise rate. Be an active person. A couch potato is far more likely to come down with heart disease than somebody who lives an active lifestyle. Okay, so that, my friends, is the end of our discussion of Chapter 5. And so this is the end of the third and final video for Chapter 5 in your textbook. And I hope that you learned something from this.